Welcome to Fire and Life Talk, transforming a world one heart at a time.
Welcome to another episode of Fire and Life Talk. We just thank you for tuning in, whether you're watching us live or watching us on a recording, whatever day, welcome. And we just thank you again. We want to thank our subscribers. We just hit another milestone today. We went over 3,000 subscribers. So we just want to thank you for wherever you're watching in the world and for tuning in. But today we have a great show, and the title of the show today is The Art of Dying. So you can comment, whatever platform that you're watching on, you can comment, ask a question, say hello, and all that good stuff. And again, don't forget to comment, to like, to share, and subscribe. Yeah, that's the other one. Had to look up in my brain to find it. But we're going to bring on our co-host, the lovely Miss Gina, my good thing. Hey, good thing.
Hello. Sounds like a good show today.
Yeah, I'm excited. I am really excited.
Too.
Yeah, we have Taylor, we have Lacey on today, and
yes.
They again, the title of the show is The Art of Dying. I don't want to give it all away, but I'm telling you, I'm excited. We have a lot of our subscribers that has called us and contacted. They're excited too. So I tell you what, I don't want to wait any longer, but let's go ahead. If it's okay with you, we'll go ahead and break.
It's
all right. All right. Everyone, welcome Taylor and Lacey to the show.
Hi.
Hello.
Hey, how y'all doing?
Good. Yeah, we're excited.
Good. Well, good. Well, welcome to Fire and Life Talk. We appreciate you coming on and taking, because I know you guys have a very busy schedule. So we just thank you for taking the time of coming on to our show. So you have a very interesting profession that we're so excited to hear about. But if you would, each one take a moment or two and tell us about yourselves.
Start? Okay. So my name is Taylor Bell. I am 41 years old. I am a native Fort Worthian. I have been a hairstylist. I have been a yoga instructor. I have been a studio manager. And I mention all that because I think it very much contributed to getting me where I am today as an end-of-life doula. And currently in life, I'm just really interested in being involved in my local community, being of service there. My partner and I adopt and foster senior dogs. So that's another way I support end of life. That's the life thing that finally is happening. And I've lately been really reconnecting to dancing. That's bringing me a lot of joy right now.
Okay, great.
Yeah, a little bit about me.
I didn't know that. Our daughter just started a dance studio, so we're gonna have to hang around afterwards and talk about that. Yeah. Lacey?
Hi, I'm Lacey Bynack. I'm also native to Texas. I live in Fort Worth with my husband and my two teenage daughter and adult son, and I'm also a grandmother of an almost 3-year-old. I have way too many animals in my house. And I have been a hairdresser I'm still doing hair 2 days a week in the salon because I love it so much. I love my clients and I love the atmosphere. But I've been doing that for 21 years. And Taylor and I, as we'll get into later, that's how we met. So yeah, just really enjoying being with my family and getting more involved in the community, especially in this end-of-life field.
That's great. Well, again, welcome to the show. What am I trying to say? Congratulations on all your success and all that y'all have done. But today we want to talk about death doula
Yes.
and end of life planning and all of that. Now that I mentioned that, and when I share what our show was about today with many, they say, "What is that?" So we have to come out of the gate and explain what a death doula is. Doula, correct? Yeah, because I've been saying doula, death doula.
You get it. You get it. Well, I would just start by saying that this is not a new profession. It does feel new in our culture right now. But caring for people in our communities at the end of life has always been an important part of societies all around the world. And we are really here to encourage people to get more involved in caring for their loved ones in the community at that time. So the last 100 years, at least in America, the end of life field has changed a lot, and we've sort of disconnected from it. So that's a big part of our mission. Doula comes from the Greek word woman who serves, and a lot of people are familiar with the word doula because of birth doulas, which has become more mainstream in the US in the last 10 or 15 years, I would say. And there's some interesting parallels there that we would love to talk about, but doula is the best word. There are a lot of other words that people use for the work that we do, like death doula, midwifery, end of life companions, and all of those are true. So death doula or end of life doula is the term that we usually stick with.
All right, and so you provide a service.
Yes,
correct?
It's
Yeah.
a non-medical service that we provide to, and our client is going to primarily be the person who is experiencing end of life.
Okay, so in providing the service, are you required to have license or certificates?
No, this isn't regulated in that way. So you don't have to have a certification. You do not have to have it. There isn't any licensure right now. What you can do is go through trainings, which Lacey and I both did different trainings, but end of life doula trainings, which you can get a certification for that in-house training, which we found invaluable. Just so much good knowledge and information that people were willing to share, but you do not have to have that.
Yeah. Now, I know from personal experience that entrepreneurship is tough in itself. Starting a business, if you're in the service industry, you have to deal with different personalities and all of that. All that goes along with, starting a business and being an entrepreneur through the different stages. But the two of you chose a profession that many do not want to talk about. They don't want to be associated with. So why is that such a, from your experience, why is that such a difficult subject to talk about?
I think there are a lot of factors involved in that. One of the words that comes to mind frequently when I'm thinking and talking with people about that is disconnection. That we're very disconnected from the process of death and dying, and much more so than historically. So we're not confronted with it in the same ways. And with our access to healthcare and a lot of life-sustaining medication and things like that, it's just a little bit, it's not, I think not confronted is really a good word for it. It's also, honestly, we have a lot of denial around our own death. There's fear there. There's fear of not being in control. Mm-hmm. And what most people do in response to that, those hard feelings, is push it away and just not think about it. And what we found is that there's huge blessings in allowing that those difficult feelings in and sort of digging in a little deeper to what's underneath there. And many times there are things that we can do to kind of alleviate some of that fear and anxiety around it.
Yeah. And I know that's very important. Again, everyone dies. I don't care, your gender, your race, your age, whatever.
Right.
And so I think what you guys do is a great and honorable, noble profession. And again, you have to deal with so many personalities, stress, grief, all of those things. So how do you prepare and educate the family throughout this process?
I was thinking about something my mom shared with me, which she was talking about this in relation to children, but I think it applies here, which is to answer the question they ask. And so that's a way to not overwhelm. So if somebody were to say, hey, Taylor, I'm noticing my dad is sleeping a lot. Is that normal? I can say, yes, that is completely normal and nothing to worry about. Now, further, if a family is working with hospice, hospice will talk to them a lot about what happens as death approaches, and we can help reinforce that information. If they're not working with hospice, there's a lot of great resources. Someone we both admire a lot is Barbara Carnes, who's a hospice nurse. She's an author. She has these great little pamphlets that really explain these processes of dying and what it looks like and what to expect. So those are resources we can hand off to families and then reinforce that through our presence.
Okay.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome, because communication is definitely the key.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. And again, you're dealing with, I keep going back to this. Maybe I need to check out myself, because I keep going back to all these different personalities and, things that these characters you have to, and two, my experience too has been, there could be a lot of division, that you guys come up against, because, during those times, oh no, I want the house. No, you don't get the house. You was never here. No, I want this. You know what I'm saying? I'm pretty sure that you guys go through that. And how do you handle that? Like, can you give us an instance or an example experience without names?
Sure. Yeah.
I had an interesting experience just recently within the last few weeks. I was called in by a daughter of a potential client. And one of the concerns that was brought up was there were two siblings taking care of the parent. And the sibling that reached out to me was worried that the other sibling wasn't going to do what the parent would want. That they would, have to initiate too much medical procedures and things like that were unwanted at the end of life, which is a huge part of what we do, is try to bring clarity to that. So when I went in to speak with the other sibling, I heard the complete opposite. So I was coming in with this idea that, okay, this person is going to potentially maybe be resistant to what the client wants. And then I hear the opposite, where they're willing to take it out of the country into extreme measures. And so that was an interesting space to hold. And it was important for me to meet with them separately and just sort of bring things back to focusing on what the parent wanted, and then finding ways to sort of facilitate that there was clarity, that we're always coming back to what the client wants. And that brings so much clarity, because there was a lot of division and hurt feelings and difficulty around something that really wasn't even an issue.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, if you're just tuning in to Fire and Life Talk, we're talking with Taylor and Lacey of The Art of Dying. You can always reach them. Again, it's a very interesting topic, and we all die, and they have a great profession here, and this is their business. This is what they do, and they're very professional about it. So you can reach them at the website that's on the screen. But again, we thank them for coming, and we're not closing right now. I just realized it sounds like I'm closing, but but we really want to get that out there. And there's not many that do this right now, is it?
Again, because it's not super regulated in that way, it's hard to know. Specifically in Fort Worth, Texas, no. In Northern Texas, it's a little less prominent than maybe other areas in the country, and then worldwide, that's very different.
Yeah, so you guys on the cutting edge. I like that.
Right.
I think Dina had
Yes, I do. How do you address unique spiritual and cultural needs of the dying and their families? How do you adjust to their different cultures and spirituality?
Sure. It's very important to us.
Yes.
So not only like Lacey and I are very committed to continually learning more about various faiths, spiritualities,
Yeah.
cultures, and the like. So that's something that's just ongoing for us. All of our services start with an information form. And on that information form, we ask for this kind of info
Good.
because we want to get ahead of that and really meet with that person, whether it's the initial consultation or our first like one-on-one with them, to come in with that awareness so we can really open the door to that conversation so that we can help them bring in whatever elements are important to them and facilitate that as best possible.
Yeah.
So we're just wide open to whatever it, like how Lacey said with the previous question, it is about the dying person.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we serve them. So whatever that makes them feel supported and held, we're going to be into that.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's great.
If I could add one thing too, which is we're big proponents for hospice. And of course, one element of the interdisciplinary team within hospice is the chaplain. And so we can always, that's part of our walking alongside the care team, which is bringing people back to those resources that they have available to them. Or it might be a situation where someone wants to reconnect with the faith of their childhood, and we can,
Right.
we are not chaplains ourselves or spiritual leaders. So we're going to try to connect some of those dots for people. Good point.
Wow, that's good information.
Yeah, that's great. And I tell you what, I know we're leading into, I want you guys to hold on to that thought. We're leading into and want to get into your actual plans and how you're hands-on with it. But before we do that, we're going to take a commercial break and we'll be right back with Taylor and Lacey, the art of dying.
The people of God have been in captivity. It's been years. Jerusalem's wall has been broken down and its gates have been burned. The condition of the city was a reflection of the condition of God's people. This is what Israel has lacked, faithfulness. Israel ultimately was supposed to be a light to the world, that was supposed to be an outpost of God's heavenly kingdom on earth. When you don't recognize the impact of your sin, you don't really have a sense of full repentance. But repentance means to change your mind and agree with God about what sin looks like and embrace his way of what a new way of life looks like. Listen, when you're focused on God's intentions, when you're focused on God's values, and when you're focused on God's direction, no matter what the enemy throws your way, you're able to overcome it. The wall is really a tool that helps build the stability of Israel to be a light to the nations. And so now, because Jesus is the one who gives us the ability to shine his light, not through a building made with hands, but a building that's been transformed by the gospel of Jesus Christ and by the blood of Christ. I pray that we as believers, for us to represent him to the world as being the lights that God called us to be, a royal priesthood for his name.
We are back with Fire and Life Talk, and Gina and I are talking today with Taylor and Lacey of the Art of Dying, and it's very interesting. We had a comment that came in, and I just wanted to share that. I don't want to mess up the name. I'm known for messing up names. Fatima Akhtar. I hope I got that right. But anyway, she says, wow, the title has me intrigued. Exploring the profound concept of death through art sounds like a fascinating journey. And I totally agree. And so I want to hear more about this journey. Tell us from the initial contact with the family, how the family contacts you and the process that you go through from there.
Yeah, and actually the name of our business came from Taylor, and I think that it would be helpful to talk a little bit about how you came up with the name and why that's important to business. To also clarify the question that was asked.
Sure. Yeah, I named it actually after a George Harrison song, which for anybody younger than us, that George Harrison was a member of the Beatles, and he did his own thing and quite profound work. And he has a song called "The Art of Dying" that's beautiful. And we see dying as an art. And so not only can art in life, whether that be, paintings, songs, anything artistic, can be inspiration for how we view both life and death. But specifically to the dying process, we want to engage people in seeing that there is, in fact, an art to it. And it can be a really unique expression for each individual.
Yeah, now that's very interesting that you tailor it for what the person needs and everything. So how soon do you come in? I mean, if someone's like healthy, like right now, can we contact you and say, hey, this is our wishes, this is what we like to do? How do we get this started?
Yeah, so we would say that the best time to start this kind of work is when you're thinking about it. If you're thinking about your end of life plans and what you have in place or don't have in place, that's the time to work on it. And so we have a service for anyone who's could be young and healthy at any age to help organize and start getting a head start on the end of life plan. So everything from the paperwork to their own preferences about what a good death would look like to them, ceremony, things that they would want to honor their life and their death. And it's actually surprising how much relief comes, even if you're young and healthy, from starting on that early. And just having it all in one place and kind of having a clear communication with the people that would be really benefiting from you doing that work. So any age, anytime, any health condition, that's when we want people to engage with this type of work with us or with another doula. And when someone goes to our website, it can help guide them through what service might be appropriate for them.
Okay, and what type of plans do you offer?
So our service that we offer to what we were just talking about with anybody young and healthy is called the Art of Pre-Planning. And that is a 45-minute consultation with a binder. The binder has 5 sections that kind of walk people through. By the time we finish that, people are really clear about what they should do now, what's most important, and things also that they could just be collecting over time and thinking about. Maybe at some point you write a letter to someone in your family and you could include that in your binder and start just growing some of those legacy things and ideas that you have around it. So that service is the Art of Pre-Planning. Now, when we have a client who's experiencing a life-limiting serious illness, that's a different set of services that we offer. There's 3 services that fall under that umbrella. So the first one is the Grand Plan, which is basically a deeper dive on the what we offer with the Art of Pre-Planning. We have the binder, but it's a much more in-depth. We might spend 2.5, 3 hours with someone, and by the time we finish that, there's a lot more clarity. We have a better idea of how we could support them, and then we typically move on to our one-on-ones, which is our companionship and support that we offer on an ongoing basis, however often people are interested in that. The third service that falls under that category would be sitting vigil. So that's what a lot of people think of with doula work, is the actual bedside work that you do with someone who's actively dying.
Oh, wow.
That's
Wow.
one difference with birth doulas and death doulas, is that we may not be there at the time of death the way that a birth doula is meant to be there at the time of birth. But that's an honor for us to be there, and if that's what the client wants, then we're definitely there to bring them some, what would you say, like some support and a peaceful presence, someone as a witness, and that can also empower the family to be more involved and to have, to bring support around that whole atmosphere.
Well,
Yeah.
that is so great.
Yeah, I have I have so many things to interject there.
Right.
That's good.
So you guys are like right there on scene, correct?
Right. Right.
And have you? Well, I'm pretty sure you have, as part of your business, actually seen the transition, like the last breath.
I have not.
Okay. Lacey?
I have seen it with some of the volunteer work with hospice.
Okay.
There's a program called No One Dies Alone, and that is a program that's all over the United States. I'm not sure. I think it's called something different in the UK, and it may be in other countries as well. So when a patient is on hospice, if there are no family members or loved ones around, then it is set up to where trained volunteers come in, try to do it around the clock. That doesn't always happen, but that's a really special experience that I've gotten a lot of, I've been really blessed to be a part of, which is being, in this case, the only person that's there to support someone. And in those cases, we don't know anything about the patient walking in. So it takes a lot of, leaving our own expectations at the door and just being 100% present to the person that is actively dying.
Wow.
Now, okay. I commend you on that, Lacey. and I think that's great. To be with a person in their last times, when their last moments, when there's no family members or things like that. I want to ask you, because you're so personable, I was going to wait to the third segment, but I want to ask you how you guys do the self-care. But before that, I wanted to share that my personal things with death. Of course, I was in the military. I experienced some things there. But when I was a kid, I found my grandmother. I was the last one to see her living. And I woke up in the middle of the night, and she was babysitting me. And she was laid over the bed, with foam coming out of her mouth, things of that nature. Okay. And then at the funeral, me being the youngest grandchild, our culture had this thing of tucking them in. And I didn't know anything about it. So the funeral director comes gets me and like, hey, you got to tuck her in. I'm like, tuck her in, so we did that. He showed me, and then they were closing the casket. And I said, hey, don't do that, because she ain't gonna be able to breathe. And he says, oh, she just sleep, little man. And I'm like, if she sleep, if you do that, you're gonna kill her again, I'm like, so that was very traumatic for me as a kid. And then I was one of the last ones to see my dad before he passed. And then Gina and we discovered my mom. And so I understand what you're saying, and that's very comforting that you're there. So that's why I said I commend you, because
Yes.
We're transitioning to a different realm of life, so to speak. So yeah, so that can be very traumatic within itself. But Gina, did you have another question?
Well, I hear what you guys are saying today, and you have a lot of patience, and you have a lot of understanding. How did you get to that place to do that for people? Because that is this is such a need for people, because we sometimes, like Pastor Gary said, there are people that that have a, you know, it's hard for them to go through that process. But you're here to help them go through that process. So, how did you ever get to that place to do that? That takes a special person.
I would say we both feel called, 100%. We both feel called to this. I know that we've both, before we knew each other, now we've known each other for a very, very long time, but before we even did, we both had like an interest in death, in that, like, the cycle of life and death, and just, it was always something that drew each of us independently. And then we got to know each other. And so I think there's something there. And then further for me, my mom died in 2013 of adrenal cancer. She was on hospice. She died at home. And it was such a different experience than what I had understood death to be. It was a very positive experience.
Yeah.
And I realized there was an opportunity there. And I didn't get it right then, but I knew things were kind of coming together. And so when I heard about being a death doula, and people started sending me this article from the New York Times about it, of like, have you thought about this? And it just kind of made sense. And so then I signed up for a training, and I called her to tell her about it. And she said, I signed up for a training. And,
Wow.
and I know. And so from that point, we're like, okay, this feels like almost out of our hands in a great way. And we're just kind of following the path that's being laid before us. So, but to answer your question, it does feel like a calling. And I can say the same.
We both been fortunate to have really beautiful experiences around death and dying. I know that Taylor's mother took a lot of care to have the death that she wanted, as much as was in her power, and it was really a beautiful time for the family. And I've been blessed to have similar experiences with both friends and family members. And there's something in those, the space when someone is passing and transitioning is sacred. It feels very, like it's very much an honor to be there. And I just feel in those moments being equipped to be in those moments in a special way. And I think that's kind of where the calling thing comes from. And when I started getting articles about it too, this happened within a week or two that we both signed up for training, unbeknownst to
other. That's what I was saying. As you were explaining it, I'm like, this thing is really happening. I'm sorry for interrupting you, Lacey. Go ahead.
No, I was just wrapping up that, when I heard the description of what it was, same as Taylor, I thought, oh, that's a thing. There's a name for this. Mm-hmm. And so it was almost like it was laid out in front of us in that way.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Well, I would like each of you to answer this question separately, but what do you consider the most important aspect of your role is as an end-of-life doula?
Well, our role, and something that can get a little bit lost in translation, is we are really there for the dying person. And if anyone has this is where I like to make some of those parallels between birth doula and death doula. When I had my daughter in the hospital, I was trying to have a more natural experience of birth and delivery, and I hired a doula, which was kind of unheard of 15 years ago. I mean, it wasn't mainstream. And although the doula was there, her presence being there, I needed my family there physically, but having the doula there to kind of have that word for me in my ear and know that she had experience in that atmosphere. And she was there. She did not have her own agenda. She was there for me and for me only. And that was really empowering to me. And I see a parallel there with death work and with death doulas, that again, we're just there to really support without judgment.
Yeah.
Is fine.
Do you collaborate with any other like healthcare professionals or holistic care?
I would say yes. And I would say we work alongside them because we are not healthcare professionals.
Right. Right.
And so, yet we've gotten to know all the hospices and palliative care around here. We want to be aware of them and them be aware of us so that we can support, from there with this like cohesion.
Yeah. Have you been embraced by those communities?
It's been interesting. And so, yes, and I think it's still so new. I was shocked going into some of these hospice buildings, these offices, and they're saying, "Oh no, I think I've heard of a death doula. What is that?" And that blew my mind. But I was so glad I was there to say, "Well, let me talk a little bit." And so it's still new. So there's still some understanding that needs to happen. And I actually recently had a call with a palliative care team that reached out to us.
Oh, wow.
And they wanted to know more. And this one person on the call said, "I'm so glad that we had this conversation because I thought that death doulas were basically anti-Western medicine.
Oh, wow.
I wanted everything to be like all natural and this whole thing." And that was the first time I had heard that.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, no. I mean, if the dying person wants it that way, I'll support that. But by no means, no. Like, hey, whatever is going to bring you the comfort you want. So that was just interesting. So I think that's part of our work also is to have those conversations and make those connections.
Yeah. Right. You said a lot there, Taylor. I still have to go back to, like, you do a lot of work online, correct? I mean, you have like online meetings. Mm-hmm. What is the process like in the in-person meeting?
So going back to, short answer, we meet people where they are.
Okay.
So, you know what I mean? Like,
yes,
all these services to give it some organization and people can understand why they might want these different services. But certainly there's been people who are like, "I don't have time to look at your website. I need help right now." And cool, where do I need to show up? And that's where, we're so grateful for our training and those who have come before us and have shared this knowledge that we can feel equipped, because really at the end of the day, it's just being a human with another human.
Right.
Yes.
And like, how can I witness you and see you and support you? Yes. So you feel held. I mean, that's it. We don't have to have training to show, you know what I mean? To show up.
Yes. Yeah. You have to be compassionate, of course. The person and the family may be in a different headspace, transition into another aspect of life. Again, I think it's a beautiful thing. Well, not so much, because someone could be suffering from a disease and dying from the disease or something. But what I was going to say is to be at a certain age and have experienced life. Sometimes that their life has been rough and maybe unappreciative and things of that nature. But when you guys come in and are able to hold someone's hand and comfort them, I think that's a beautiful thing. I think it's a beautiful thing. And again, we need to take a commercial break. Again, you're watching Fire and Life Talk with Pastor Gary and Gina, and with Taylor and Lacey in this subject about the art of dying. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Throughout time, the ritual of sacrifice has been central to many of the world's religions. The Aztecs, Incas, and Mayans sacrificed women, children, and prisoners of war to the gods of the sun, rain, and the earth. It was believed the gods required the blood of such victims to maintain power and life. The Phoenicians, Carthaginians, Ammonites, and Canaanites sacrificed firstborn sons and daughters to the god Moloch, also known as Baal. It was believed the god required such sacrifice to sustain their own life and render theirs immortal. The Celtic Druids and the Romans laid human sacrifices within the foundations of temples, monuments, and homes. It was believed the gods required such a sacrifice to provide protection. Today, many occultic practices and religious groups around the world still require human sacrifices under the false idea that they will result in power or immortality. Human blood sacrifices have resulted only in death. Only one has resulted in life. In ancient Israel, God himself walked among men in the form of the man Jesus Christ. He shed his own blood for us when he was beaten and crucified. He conquered the power of death with his resurrection so that we might obtain life after death. He is the cornerstone of our faith. All it requires is that we believe.
And we are back with Fire and Life Talk this week. This episode is awesome. It is awesome. I know it is from the comments. I can't get all the comments and questions on there, but we're going to try. This is our third segment. We're talking to Taylor and Lacey, and we're just, again, so glad that you're here and you're helping us so much. I've been taking some notes, and again, we got some questions that we're going to get on the screen. But last segment, we talked about the personable aspect that you provide for your service. And I know, being in ministry, that when you're dealing with grieving people, you're dealing with people that has problems, going through trauma or whatever. We, as a person that's giving the service, has to be careful that these things don't attach to us and that we carry them, and that it weigh it down. So can you tell us your process? I don't know if you both have the same process or different processes of self-care after going through these plans and procedures.
I'll start. One thing that we've each done in our scheduling is to give ourselves plenty of space around, before we see a client and after we see a client. We're not stacking clients. We also made the conscious decision to not make this our full-time job, because we want to take care that we are giving people the right amount of, attention, customized attention for each person, but also that we have enough space to process and think through and feel, what we're going through and what we're experiencing. So I think that's one of the biggest things we've done for ourselves.
We've both worked in such people-centered industries in the past that I know we both bring a lot of practices that have helped us. I just think about being a hairdresser after COVID, and that environment really taught me a lot about my own boundaries and my own health around not getting pulled into other people's orbit in an unhealthy way. And so for me, meditation, a lot of visualization kind of stuff that I do, prayer, ritual, coming home and making an herbal tea and just sort of sending the signal to my mind that, okay, that's done now, and now it's time to process and sort of transition into a different mindset.
Yeah, that's great. You see me kind of chuckling. You said, don't get pulled into anyone else's orbit. Man, I'm going to make that my mantra, because every aspect of life. mom was a hairdresser, so that's why it's taken. You know, barbershops and hairdressers, that's where we find out what's going on in the community, right?
Everybody's orbit. Everybody's orbit.
Appreciate that. I just love to bring humor to it because, you know, you can get heavy because you guys are very passionate and you pour out and you give up yourself.
Yes.
Taylor, I think that's great. You said you space yourself out. You make sure you get enough time to regroup. And I mean, these are just life skills that we need, period.
Period.
You know, I think the world is just stressed out, you know, especially America on these high. Just go get on the highway. I almost named the highway in the place. Just go get on the highway and see how stressed out America is. Signs, I want to put an electronic sign on the board like, man, chill out. You know, I want to put it on my just ride around. Anyway, I done went off on another tangent. You're very passionate about riding the end of life experience. So what if someone else wanted to get in this business, or I can just feel that, you know, your business, like I said earlier, you're on the cutting edge, and I know that more people are going to be looking for your services. So in the hiring process, how would you, or what qualities would you look for in a person, or characteristics?
Yes.
So thinking about it from like a potential client standpoint that's looking for a doula, is that specifically what you're asking about?
Could be.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's go ahead and answer that one. Answer that one, Lacey.
Okay. Well, every training program is different. So I would, if I was looking for a doula for myself, I would look into the integrity of the training program that had been done. And I think that's where it can be really helpful to meet with someone in person, because there does need to be a connection there with someone. And I think a lot of that is pretty clear when you sit down in a room with someone, which is why when we have a potential client reach out to us, we do a 45-minute complimentary consultation. We go to where they are in their space and we just sit with them. And most of what we're doing during that time is just listening. And by the end of that, you know, we have a chance to answer questions, but we've understood if we're a good fit. And I think that's really helpful too.
Yeah, most definitely. I guess I didn't want to put numbers on or anything, but after meeting like any other clients that says, no, I don't think we want to go this way.
Yes.
Yeah, you have had that experience?
Well, and I think what can happen too is they maybe get a little bolster of courage. You know, they're like, I'm going to talk about it, or I'm going to plan it, or I'm going to reach out. And then, you know, we reply and we're not going to harass them. You know, they know we're here.
Right.
So we'll reach out once or twice and just, you know, let them, because sometimes that's just the first step, is they just need to like, I'm just going to make that connection and then I'm going to come back to my safe space, you know, because it's a good thing. So we don't take it personally, you know, and it could be like, oh, this isn't what I actually need. And that's okay too. Like,
right.
You know, we just want to be there in case you do need it.
Yeah, again, you know, it's fairly new, but I mean, not new, but you're introducing it to newer generations and things of that. You know, the history of it's been around. I think, Lacey, I didn't know if you put a number on it, but just doing a little research, you know, is the basic thing is someone there to care for you. Right. You know, like a midwife or birthing, but you guys are taking care of the end of life. And I just cannot commend you enough. I say, I think that's great. So as you introduce your service, people, you get educated, you get empowered, you get equipped, and most of all, you give them an understanding. You give them an understanding. How deep do you go, like education wise, about death? Because sometimes people don't understand death, and from my experience, sometimes people die, they transition like that. And sometimes it takes days. So how do you explain that to the families, or how would you take those concepts and make it easier for us to understand?
Take that one.
Well, there's so many different ways to look at that, and part of it is knowledge about the signs of approaching death. There are some ways to know, this is typically a few weeks out, or this is happening with the body. Systems are starting to shut down a little bit. Here's what that looks like within, a week to 3 weeks prior to death. And of course, that's a loose guideline, but I think information alleviates some fear for people. And then as far as if someone asks us what death is like or what happens after they die, we are really careful not to turn that back to them. And it's really about them. We're not there to give them our opinions or beliefs personally, unless they specifically ask for that. So that's maybe getting a little bit off topic, but there are so many people have anxiety around death, and it's sometimes surprising what that anxiety, where it's coming from. And we might assume that it's coming from one thing. For example, people will say, I'm afraid to die. And you could ask the question, are you afraid of the process of death, or are you afraid of not being here? There's a lot to dig in and try to understand more about what it is that needs to be discovered.
Right.
Yeah, and yeah, that poses a lot of questions. Even though our human nature, we try to avoid it, but we know it's inevitable. And again, it's kind of hard to talk about. I guess I've learned, Gina and I think I can speak for her. We've learned through our experiences. We've learned to get an understanding. Like you said, I like what you said. We don't put our personal views or anything, upon that. Let me ask you this, and I know I'm kind of coming out of the blue, but has there been any kind of like unusual requests that you guys have run across?
We did get a request for, and this isn't unusual. It's unusual in my personal experience, but we did have a request about following the Buddhist tradition of having a body be untouched for 3 days. And sometimes people are just curious about what, maybe bringing in some traditions that are even new to them and their own family about the way that their body cared for. So that gives us an opportunity to research those things and to bring information to people so that they can decide if that lines up with their values and it's something that they want, then we can help support that. And also educating the family about how to do the things that the client wants. So that's not,
also, I think it takes quite a lot for us to find something unusual. But sure, whatever.
That's good.
Yeah, that is good. I'm a person, I love to learn. I love to learn about different things, different cultures, different practices. And so I can see that in your profession, you have that opportunity to learn, and to study and see where all these things come from. Again, we've experienced a lot of death and from different cultures, and it was just kind of different. And sometimes, let me see the right word. Sometimes you're a little apprehensive of like what's going on because you don't understand it. Right. So again, you guys, in your plans and your preparations and your studies, man, I think that's awesome.
That is awesome.
Maybe we should have hired her.
Lacey says, or I can't remember who said this to you, but it's just always so good, and we come back to it, which is that we're not the expert. The dying person is the expert.
Wow.
Right. So that's everything, and that kind of helps. To me, it just gets all the fluff away and helps us get back to just being in a sense of curiosity. I love that, like just being very open and very curious about what makes life worth living for this person, what makes a good death for this person. And it's just, it really comes back to that relinquishing control and just saying, how can I be curious here and let them lead me?
Yeah. That's a great approach. That's what I was going to say, because the cat appeared behind Lacey. Lacey didn't know it, but I thought this is a great transition, because Taylor, tell us about your newest project, the Rainbow Project.
Oh yes. Okay, so
Great
I
timing.
actually named it the Rainbow Connection from the Muppets song, and so yeah, it is something that was in my mind. And as I mentioned earlier, my partner and I, we've been adopting, fostering senior dogs. And so our last one that passed, which was a couple of months ago, it was the first time I had brought the dog's body home and had some ceremony and ritual around that. And it changed our grieving process entirely. It was wonderful. And so after having that experience and having this inkling towards people probably would love tools to do all these things we do for people, all this caring and comfort and, you know, just thoughtfulness, like our pets mean so much to us. And
they're family members.
They are, and their death can be traumatic. It can be as traumatic and sometimes more than human death.
We experienced that too. We actually inherited a pet from my brother-in-law passing away, and it was older, and as the pet went on, and we see it just slowing down and everything, and in that process, and the last day or so, it just would not move at all. And when the pet died, we relived my brother-in-law passing because they were so close, you know. So yeah, it is a process, and we do need that comfort. But I tell you what, we're coming up to the end of the show. I told you it was going to be quick, didn't I? So take a minute. We got about a minute. Share what you would love the audience to take away from this show and your services.
Yes.
As far as our services, the website, we've really worked on trying to make it clear and inserting a lot of questions there. So if you have any questions or you're interested in service, please check that out. I think it's listed on the screen. The takeaway that I would really just love to project here is that it's a gift to ourselves and to our families to really think about this part of life. Death is such a part of life where we're missing the whole experience by avoiding thinking about it and talking about it. And when we do our own work around it, just even considering it, there's a lot of growth that can happen there and a lot of blessings that can come into the way we live our life when we think about it through that lens. So not even to mention the gift we can give to our family members if we've done a little bit of planning ahead of time also.
Yes. Yeah.
I'd say, to continue on with that, that's also true. And the word that comes to mind is reverence, of allowing for the possibility of having reverence towards death, a respect for it, an acknowledgement of it, potentially eventually an acceptance of it. To bring that in will lead, as she was saying, to a fuller life. Where we're seeing the full spectrum and understanding that, as you said, and I love it that you keep saying, like, death is inevitable. Like, death, the one thing that we all bet on. Like, you know, and so what a wonderful thing that actually connects us all. I mean,
oh, wow. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's
and a lot of times that's what we have to find in humanity is what connects us. We have so many more things that connects us than divides us. And if we can focus on that. We're running out of time. We want to close, but I want to encourage everyone that's watching. And I didn't get all the comments and everything on, but to share about this experience, grab the link, send it out, share it. And also go to Taylor and Lacey's website, The Art of Dying FW, that stands for Fort Worth. We thank you once again for tuning in to Fire and Life Talk. We'll be back next week with another great episode. Taylor and Lacey, thank you for coming on.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you for tuning in to Fire and Life Talk, where Jesus is Lord. If you would like more information, visit our website at fireandlife.org.